There.
Genesis what? 25?
25.
Oh.
All right, let's go ahead and get ourselves started then with a word of prayer, and we'll get into the lesson. Rob, you want to open us in a prayer, please?
God, our Father in heaven, God, we're thankful for today and the blessings that we enjoy in this world, your creation. Thank you for that. And we're just thankful that we have your word recorded for us, that we can study from it. We just pray that you'll be with us this evening as we look at the life of Abraham, and just help us to learn from it, and help us to incorporate that faithful living into our own lives. God, we just thank you for Jesus. In his name we pray.
Amen. Thank you. All right, we're looking at the end of Abraham's life, and we talked at length last week about Abraham and what's his wife's name?
Sarah.
Keturah.
Oh, second, right?
Yeah, the one in this chapter. One in this chapter, in this phase of his life, Keturah, and their children, their sons. We talked extensively about them and their kind of their significance and their background, at least what nations they play into. We'll be talking a little bit more about Ishmael on that front as well. And even in this morning's class, we did address some of that a little bit more. I'm going to pull up the map here. So just to give us a reminder and just a look at the area. This is a map from Moses's time, so it's looking ahead, but at least to see a couple of key things right here, if we take a look at Midian, and grab something else here. The Midianites are what come from Keturah's sons, right? And so Midian over there, just on the side of the Red Gulf of Aqaba, so the right side of the Red Sea, and over there on the far right, lower right corner, where it says Arabia. So the Arabian Peninsula, that whole area becomes occupied by Abraham and Keturah's sons and their descendants, but also Ishmael and his sons and descendants. So if you look at it from Egypt, from just on the other side of Egypt, from Shur, and that whole kind of wilderness of Egypt area and Arabia, those all that area ends up being highly Arabian as far as the dwellers go for such a long time there. So coming from Ishmael, coming from Abraham and his wife Keturah, who is Keturah thought to be? Also, another name for Keturah that Jewish tradition holds anyway. Who is
Hagar?
Yeah, Hagar. Thank you. So Hagar is what some believe. I don't personally take that view, but that is just it's a prominent Jewish view, traditional view that they hold to. And there's some further explanation. You can go and look into that and see kind of why and why that might resonate with them on that. And in the end, really, it makes for a nice it makes for a nice Hallmark movie. Hagar's, she was the castaway. Ishmael was the castaway. They're back on the scene. She's back on the scene. That's how it would make for a neat story, that she did not go and defile herself with another man, but she's sort of like a neat redemption story or a story of them getting back together. And who doesn't love that kind of a story? But that at least is part of what flows into the picture of the tradition, the Jewish tradition that Keturah is the new name for Hagar. Uh, so take that for whatever it's worth. There's nothing in the text that indicates that. In fact, I would just suggest that because their sons are named, Abraham and Keturah's sons are named separate and apart from Ishmael being a part of the mention of among those sons, that Keturah is not Hagar. So that's just my take on that. All right. In the end, does it matter? I don't think so. There is mention though, however, and this is the thing, is what does the Bible say? What is the Bible telling us about these individuals, and at what point is it really important? In what way is Hagar's name important in the long run in biblical terms? Do we see Hagar mentioned anywhere else in the Bible besides here in Genesis? We do. In the New Testament, we do. Any guesses where? Yeah. We actually did look at it. It's been a while.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
Where Paul's talking about the free woman and the slave woman.
Yes, yes. Where might that be found? In the New Testament. Good guess. From Galatians. Very good. Yes, Galatians. The free woman and the bondwoman. So comparing Sarah and Hagar. And all of that to emphasize what? Why does he bring up Sarah and Hagar? And what point is he using with regard to those? He's talking about Christians facing persecution. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was talking about the free woman and the slave woman, the promise that was given to
The son of the free woman.
son of the
right?
free woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's making a case for Christians being the heirs of the promise and the free woman, right? So in other words, through Sarah and Abraham, Isaac was birthed, and then the promise that God had given to Isaac that Paul would make in Galatians chapter 3, talking about the seed that comes from Abraham, the offspring from him that was promised that would bring, that would be a blessing to all the earth. And that is, he spells it out as being Christ. So those who are of Christ are of the free woman, are of the promise and recipients of the promise, as opposed to Hagar. And what would have been, and this is part of the big thing, is that Abraham and Hagar gave birth to Ishmael, and Ishmael seemed like he was supposed to be the one, right? The one through whom the promise was supposed to come. And so part of Paul's point is it's not through him. It's through Sarah, through Isaac, right? Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac. But then also one was persecuting the other, right? Is how Paul talks about it as well. And so the free being persecuted. So he's using that allegory to make a point, and ultimately showing historically too where God's promise, what line that was really going through. Because did God not, we'll get to this in one of the questions, but did God not give promises and to Ishmael as well?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. And so so then that as we talked last week, that leads into all of even the modern day conflicts that exist between Muslims and Israelis, right? So from the Muslim end, predominantly Arabian, and then so the conflict that is going on today. So in Palestine, Gaza, Palestinians are predominantly what nationality? They're
Arab.
Palestinian. No, what?
Arabs.
Yeah, they're Arabs, right? And so um, Gaza, right there in Palestine as well, right? And the Gaza Strip. And so Hamas, is Hamas a location or a group? Okay, Hamas is a group. It's a political group, Arabic political group, Muslim political group that has, in a lot of ways, been very um, antagonistic toward Israelis, driving them out of Gaza, all that kind of stuff. And so the conflicts that exist today date all back to all this. So we covered a whole lot of that. So I don't want to revisit a whole bunch of that, but at least to just simply note that it's been a long-standing conflict that keeps coming back to really ultimately who really was Abraham's descendant and the one of promise and promise for the land and who gets the land. And then it's just been a compounding conflict that it's almost like who knows where the conflict started and how it even is ever going to end. And so why in the world are we fighting in the first place? We just hate them and they hate us. And it's almost like the conflict's been going on for so long, you almost just forget what it's really about. It's just been a whole lot of things along the way in the process. Now, with that being said, in our Sunday afternoon class on premillennialism, look at how that also plays into some of this stuff as we talked about. So from QN Christianity, and where's Christianity with all of this? So those who claim Christianity as their belief system, as opposed to Islam, Muslims, right? And as opposed to Jews. But Christianity and the whole premillennialism belief has Israel in there as an important part of the picture of ushering in the return of Christ, how Israel fares in all of this. So, a belief that still even today, God has a favoritism toward Israel, that Israel is still going to see its rise up, and God is working that into the plan as part of bringing Jesus back into the picture to be the earthly king, the earthly Messiah for his 1,000-year reign. So, how does that factor into all this? Well, look at how many people are talking about and going, hey, look at, what's God doing here in all of this? And so whose side is God on? Is he on the side of the Israelis? Right? And so here they've just been picked on for so long, for so many years. They're just a small nation in the midst and right in the middle and surrounded by a whole lot of opposing nations or whatever. Oh, this could just really become a big discussion, and it's a big political point, but it's also a religious point based off of your belief system. In the end, look at how, regardless of which side somebody is on this, how people, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Israeli, whether it's Christian, or whatever, are trying to bring God into the picture, and God is on our side. Right? God is on our side because we're his faithful people, or Allah is on our side. He wants to see to it that these others who are not believers like us, face a judgment and a fate and all that kind of stuff, right? And the same is true on regardless of which side you might see somebody on this, that people are wanting God to be on in the picture on their side. Let's at least give some credit where credit is due. That ultimately, people on the most foundational, fundamental level want to see God as an active proponent in working things for them. And I say them, anyone is of them who consider themselves faithful and on God's side. But it's interesting how opposing sides might all claim that God is on their side. right? Hey, we even saw that in COVID, didn't we? In 2020, with COVID, you had two completely opposing angles and arguments, either for or against, separation, masking up, different things like that. People arguing biblical points for masking up and biblical points for not masking up, and saying, you're not loving if you either do or if you don't, right? And appealing to God's word and drawing God into the picture to sort of like be the backup force for why they're standing in the right place on it. So the whole world has, throughout history, always called upon their either God or gods to be back behind them and the justifier behind why they go to war, why they do anything that they do, right? It's a justifier. And that's also been a wrong approach that people have taken in life, is that my God is my justifier of me and backs me up in the things that I do. And so even that was even like when you look at the battles and the wars of among idolatrous nations, whose God is the stronger, better God, and all of that. So, all right, so that's how big picture stuff, like how a lot of this is that we see that's going on, how it plays into where people are coming from, why people have such a strong opinion and strong buy-in on how things are faring between Israel and Palestine. And so free Palestine, don't be anti-Semitic, all that kind of stuff. Why is this so strongly resonating with people? Because of a lot of these number of things. Maybe some people don't even realize the depth of it. They've gotten on board with maybe, some of these mantras for some different reasons. But all of that, I mean, circles or cycles back to some of this stuff right here in Genesis 25, which just names people who were the beginning of these nations, right? Isaac, the beginning of the Jews, the Israelites, and Ishmael, the beginning of the Arabs. And guess what? Abraham's the father of both. He's father of both the Hatfields and McCoys. All right. Okay. Anything else on that before we move on? What I was showing up here on the map though was, so you got Arabia here and the Midian and the Midianites right over here. So this is part of that territory of Abraham and Keturah's, one of their descendants, and the Midianites who would be there. And then when we look into this next part, more modern day map, Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, all that's there in yellow. So right up here's Midian, right there. And here's that branch of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba, right there. So Ishmael and Keturah's sons and their descendants, and Ishmael and his descendants, all mainly occupying a lot of this area here. One thing that's worthy of note, as far as some of the sons that come out of this, is what we know about some of the Arabians is that they were nomadic. They were became known as being sellers of trade in terms of herbs and spices and different things, like that. All right, so there we go. There's a little bit of that. Let's go ahead and get on to question 3 of our lesson here. That is, how does Abraham manage distribution of inheritance with his descendants? So how many sons does he have with Keturah?
6.
6. So, and then he also has Isaac. So how does he go about this distributed inheritance?
Everything goes to Isaac, but he does give gifts, inheritance wise to Isaac, and he gives gifts to the other son.
Yeah, what's significant about that? Is there anything significant about that, or is it just like, yeah, that's not a surprise. That's how it should be, or whatever. Go ahead, Robin.
He gave gifts as he sent them on their way.
Okay. Parting gifts, actually, as well, right? He actually sends them out. Where does he send them away to? It just says east.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that significant that of all the things Moses could have written about it, included in this story about what happens with them, he says he gave them gifts and he sent them east. Anything significant about that all, or is it just like, well, I mean, you got 4 different directions you can go. That was the one that he sent him to. But there is something a little bit biblically going on with that. What do you think it would be?
The wise men came to see Jesus from the east.
Yeah, the wise men come from the east. Okay. The temple, when it's set up, where's the entrance? It faces the east. So you exit the courtyard, you exit the temple, exit the courtyard, you go to the east. When they go into captivity, where do they go? They go to the east. When Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden, what direction is it? East. So you actually have some eastward, like, thematic things going on here. Now, how far we want to dig into that, I think there's at least something that is being noted here, because think later on down the line who these people end up becoming as a as they relate to the Israelites later on down the line. They become problematic to them as well, right? And part of that conflict, okay, that arises. So there's something about the east, like being kicked out of the garden, or if you're talking about exiting the temple, like you're getting away from God's presence, kind of a thing. Now I'm trying to think, which direction does Cain go? Because he tries to leave the presence of God, right? He departs from the presence of God. Now I want to see this because I didn't think to look that up until just now. I was looking at it. So Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. So there's a part of that that almost suggests some sense of departing from God. Now, would Abraham have done that? Like, hey, depart from the Lord? No, I don't think that's the case. But the fact that they are then noted as people of the East, even though, as we understand it, it's more like southeast, is still considered east. Okay, where they end up going. And so it just seems to be some continued away from God or contrary to God kind of a direction.
So are Keturah's sons, is that Arabian too?
They are Arabian as well, yes.
Still Arabian?
Yeah.
So there's 18 sons that go out.
Yeah.
Keturah had 6.
Ishmael,
Ishmael, but his grandkids, so that would be the grandkids.
that's his grandkids.
Yeah, Abraham's grandkids.
Oh,
Ishmael.
yeah.
Yeah. But still, the 12 princes, right? Ishmael's 12 sons become known as the princes, 12 princes. Yeah. Yeah, so some interesting stuff, and there may be more tie-ins and more significant things, but I just wanted to at least note that the direction is specifically mentioned, so don't just dismiss it. Oh, well, okay, so they went that way. But I think there's a little bit more to what that's looking ahead to by that notation. Now, I don't think that's with intent on Abraham's part, like, hey, you guys are going to be contrary. you're going to be away from God or whatever, but that's the direction he sends them. All right, but Isaac gets he gets everything. He gets everything. Is this how do you think the rest of the boys took it?
Not good.
I mean, do you think they would have understood that? Like, well, this is how it goes. He is, or hey, there's another one who was born first. But yeah,
Oh yeah, that's what they're. I mean, in that culture, didn't it all go to the firstborn anyway? So the only person who would have had an issue is Ishmael.
yeah,
So Isaac, I mean, the fact that he's the firstborn and the child of promise because of Sarah. I mean, yeah, Ishmael should be the only one that had any kind of issue.
yeah, yeah. And Isaac's still there with among Abraham and right and Keturah and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's just when it comes to inheritances, today does it kind of go that same way where it's like the oldest gets it, and even then it was like the oldest
So,
male,
yeah.
right? It was the oldest male.
Mhm.
And so inheritance was a little bit different for the women if there were no males. There, God had, incorporated some things in his law on that. But what was kind of the inheritance for women, for daughters?
The dowry.
The dowry, right? And so there's part of your so really she doesn't have to wait until dad's dead to get the inheritance. Right? But apparently inheritances would also be sort of divvied up before the person dies. Look at the parable of the prodigal son. He collects his inheritance early, right? Says, go ahead and give it to me now. But think about, how a dowry ends up being an inheritance for the daughter. And think about how that works. Are dowries still a thing today?
Not for me.
No, but sometimes usually
Good luck, person.
the bride's family usually pays for the wedding.
Okay, so that is a thing. The bride's family pays for the wedding. The groom's family pays for the rehearsal dinner, right? Kind of a thing. And then, however much that ends up working out to be, and I've heard of some parents who have told their children, "Hey, we'll give you this much if you just and you can either use that on your wedding or you can just elope or whatever, and then you have this money to start your life off with, and not be in debt and all that kind of stuff, or having wasted that money on, a party." So, so there is that thing that's more like our present time. And so really when you think about it, that's almost like that approach kind of almost buys back into the inheritance idea, right? Or dowry concept. Here you go. You're going to go be married to this person. Here's this amount of money for you, which might have been also part of the bargaining for, hey, your son marries my daughter, and this is what, here's how we're going to contribute financially to this so that they're both taken care of and type of a thing. So there's all that. But it's weird when it comes to when last will and testaments are filled out and signed, and then the person dies, and then the kids have to like sift through all of that and try. No one gets emotionally wrought with frustration and anger and jealousy or anything like that, right? When it comes to divvying up an inheritance, even if it says it in the will, just as hard as if it doesn't say something in the will, right? About, well, who gets this and who gets that. But even if it does say this is who gets this and who gets that, well, that's not right. What was dad or mom thinking? Or I can't believe that, and I should get that. And it's hard to see it go smooth. It seems like more often than not, it doesn't go smooth with that kind of stuff. Why? Why is inheritance such a big deal?
I think it's
Material stuff.
yeah.
Okay, one, it's material stuff that can really help us out in life, right? Boy, it'd be great. Boy, that would really help us pay off bills. That would really help us in this way financially in life. But more than just, let's say, monetary value. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and in my experience, it brought out all this sibling rivalry and jealousy and all this emotional stuff that really wasn't money. Nobody really cared about the money. It was just like a perceived favoritism or
Mhm.
you whatever. It was,
So no, that's so real. I mean, I experienced that with my dad's passing. He wrote me into the will and wrote everybody else out,
yeah.
and that made that made me feel just as in an awkward position or in a very difficult position because now I feel like it's left on my shoulders to kind of deal with this stuff like rightly for divvying it up or like fairly if he's not going to be what I think should be fair or what they feel should be fair about it. I'd have been fine. Hey, I was the only son, so I should be getting all this and I should expect that, right? Based on tradition. So what's everybody squabbling about? But it was and granted the relationship was different between my sisters and my dad and myself and my dad. And so but it was a hard thing. For one sister more than the other, but still it was a hard thing to be on the receiving end of, yeah, you don't get anything. But in the process of all that, he gave gifts to them before I got everything. So I got more. And but then it's also been about like trying to be a good manager of that with regard to my siblings as well. And he gave me his reasons and told me his reasons for why he was leaving more to me than to them and all that kind of stuff. But it was hard. It was hard for them once he confronted them with because at least thankfully at least he told them, hey, this is your lot in this, or this is not your lot in this. It's not a lot.
Mhm.
And I know it was that's just hard news to receive. I don't and then kind of like you were saying, uh, I know I've been regarded by my sisters as the golden child for a while. Um, and I would say yeah, I guess that's probably true. Dad and I had probably the closer and more ongoing working relationship you know without speed bumps along the way. Um, so but that's when people talk in those terms there's a little bit more behind that. But I'm also thankful that my sisters didn't things could have been like way worse. I think they were just more hurt by dad than anything. And it's hard. It's what do you do with all that? And so the other point of inheritance is what is it? Why do people look so strongly to that besides just monetary value? And then status. How about the sentimental side of it all? Right? Sentimental value? Anything hold sentimental value? Going through dad stuff. I know my sisters when they came through, walking through the house. I said, okay, you guys tell me what are some things you really kind of like you're hoping you might actually, get in all this. And let's just talk about who it means more to. Let's everyone make your case, kind of a thing. And I really like this. And okay, well, I really like this because of all right, okay. Well, I kind of was really hoping to have that too for this reason. And and then it's like whose reason trumps the other one. And thankfully we've managed to work through it like pretty well. But I've seen people I know you have too, where it just goes a really rough route. So inheritances, when it says he gave gifts and then he gave this inheritance to Isaac, he got everything else. That's no small deal. This is a lot of stuff. And so while that may be the norm, just don't dismiss that it plays a role in relationships and how things it can either drive a wedge or just create some bitterness, whatever. All right. In the end, what does it say about Abraham? Think he's an unfair guy? I think he's just a generous fellow. And it makes sense that, he gave gifts to the other sons and then gave more to Isaac. Well, whether you agree with how inheritances work and did work culturally, it's what he did. And he was a generous guy with what he had. Yeah, go.
I think your dad probably knew that you would take care of things the right way, you would just, stood
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to go.
I think that was part of it from our discussions. That's kind of what I gathered.
See,
Yeah, and that's the other thing is maybe you don't understand all the things going on in a person's head for why they do what they do, but they had some reason behind it, and it may not make sense in the moment. Yeah. So, all right, let's go ahead and look at the next question here. Just note that the inheritance for Isaac would stand out as a very significant um, validation of God's promise being met out through. Okay, so God's promise being met out through Isaac, not through Ishmael, even though Ishmael is also going to be blessed, but it's through Isaac the promises are met out. Okay. So how old is Abraham when he died? How old was he?
175.
175. Ripe old age. Emphasis on the ripe. Right. A good old age. Which it really kind of says something like this man was full of many good years, wouldn't you say? This man really lived a full life. How old were Isaac and Ishmael when Abraham died?
75 was Isaac. Ishmael was 89, 90.
Yeah. 75 and 89. 89, 90, right in there. So those guys are a good old age, wouldn't you say? But Isaac's
He's not even married yet.
he's what?
He's not even married yet.
Yeah.
Is he?
He's married. He marries at 40.
Oh, at
He
40.
marries at 40. So now
Oh, I was thinking after Sarah died.
yeah. So now Isaac's been married for 35 years now at this point that we reach chapter 25. So and the death of Abraham. Yeah. Okay. So what lessons do you learn about and from Abraham in his old age?
Well, apparently men are never too old to have children.
He wasn't. Yeah. It's amazing how much the body can still keep going.
And I thought it was interesting that he still needed a companion, like having that relationship, partner.
Is the same true for women as it is for men?
No. I think so.
At least not the norm, right? Like, or at least generally speaking, it seems like women, when they lose their spouse, they're content with remaining single with the memory of that spouse holding and carrying them, right? But for men, it's a different thing. Haven't we seen many men we have known, either related to or have known, do that where their spouse dies and it's not long before they get remarried.
Mhm.
And so there's something interesting about that, and it kind of takes me back to the garden.
Mhm.
Right? God said it's not good for man to be alone.
Mhm.
He said man, he didn't say about woman. He said man, it's not good for man to be alone because he'll get into way too much trouble if he's on his own. No, he didn't quite say that, but there's something to it about companionship and maybe how God designed men and women, but he's designed us both to have desire companionship, but there's something different about how he's made us in that way too, right? So Abraham sees the need to fill that companionship, and he does that. Is that a slight against the memory of Sarah? Okay, but that kind of an issue that comes up with regard to men who lose their wives, who get married, and maybe married so quickly, maybe within inside of a year of losing their spouse. Like,
It's usually our children that have issues.
and so there are family issues that come to the forefront that become a problem. Maybe the kids have a problem with it and like, whoa, what is this saying about mom and how can you replace mom and things like that,
No, man was supposed to have a woman, a wife, they become one.
Yeah.
How come they had so many concubines and maids and all that?
That's an issue.
Yeah.
That's a mess.
Yeah, that's another great question that
God didn't like that.
I think yeah, God didn't plan that from the beginning, did he? He allowed for it along the way. Part of it ended up being sort of taking care financially, being able to take care of, or women to be able to be taken care of financially, but still it's like, well, aren't there other men who can do that too? Like single men
There's
who
still
do
way
that too?
more women than men in the world.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I mean that's an interesting point of discussion, but yeah. But here, it's almost like Abraham, maybe he learned the first time and he never seemed to, does he seem to entertain concubines as part of the picture? Here he just takes another wife. Yeah.
I mean, and even Hagar, Sarah's the one that said take her.
Yeah.
It wasn't his idea.
Yeah. And so by the time we get to the New Testament, you see Jesus saying, when he's answering the question about like adultery and all that kind of stuff, and then he just says, look, this is the way that God made it from the beginning, one man, one woman together for life, in so many words. That's how Jesus put it, right? And then when we look at the stipulation for those who would be elders, it would be specified that they'd be the husband of, one wife. I think in a period in time where polygamy was kind of still an acceptable normal thing. Doesn't mean that everybody was polygamous, no, but there were people. It was, a rather more still common thing. So, all right. What else? Anything else that you learned from Abraham's death, though? About him, from him, in his old age.
Still pretty active in the family business.
Okay, he's active in the family. Active in the family business.
No.
So think
This is
about
the
it.
Thing about men versus women.
Yeah.
Men forget quickly, and women can pull them.
Yeah. So note this, that Abraham, so while he's still having children in old age, and remember what God's blessing was in the very beginning?
Be a great name.
He blessed his creation to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth.
Wait.
Yeah. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. And that's what's happening here. We actually see like God's blessing being met out at a late phase in Abraham's life as well. Okay. I think that's important to note that as well. But also, what did it say about Abraham in his old age? Was everything going good for him, or was he discontent? What does it say?
I thought he was satisfied with life.
He was satisfied with what?
Life.
He was satisfied with life. Okay, tell me what that teaches you for old age. What?
Stop complaining. I don't know.
Stop complaining. Okay, there you go. Don't be a whiner and griper. Oh man, look at all the hard things that have come on me in my life. Look how miserable it's been. But rather, he can say, you know what? I've had a good life. I've had a good, full life. It is one of the things that I remember my dad saying is, in fact, the doctor was really surprised when he didn't want any kind of chemotherapy or anything like that. And they were really surprised. And he said, I've lived a full life. I've done more than I ever could have even imagined. And I've had such a blessed life. And that's kind of the picture that I have of Abraham, where he looks at it and goes, you know what, here I am coming to the end of my days, however long he must have thought that might have been, but he's starting to feel it. And he's satisfied with life. Do you think there were things he regretted along the way? How about some of the incidents that we do have record of?
Yeah.
What about all the things we don't? What's that?
Like lying.
Yeah, like
That.
deception and lies and all that kind of stuff. And and some very sticky situations with the Pharaoh and with Abimelech, and whew, those were some close calls with regard to Sarah, and that could have been a really bad situation. Neither of those, but does he seem to let those be the thing that like kind of runs his heart and his mind and his thinking life? Like, man, those things that I did. Or how about the things that happened to him, the unfairness, like, the well situation with Abimelech and oh man, we don't even get access to the well. And, how about Lot when he chose the better stuff, and here we are stuck with all the stuff that's all been eaten up, and um, there are a whole lot of things he could look back on and go, man, people have just done me dirty in life. But actually, what kind of reputation does Abraham have among the Hittites and the Canaanites?
He's honored.
Yeah.
What?
Pleasing to God, he was faithful
Yeah,
to God.
and he's well respected by these other people, even by Abimelech, because God tells him, "Hey, Abraham's my prophet, right? And he's going to pray for you." Things like that. But he's well respected even among the Hittites there who sold him the land. They said, "Hey, we'll give you what you want. You name it. Anybody's piece of property here that you want to bury your wife, you name it, we'll give you a good deal, or maybe not a good deal, but we'll sell it to you anyway." And he's a man who's favored among the people, isn't he? In fact, what's it say about Jesus? That he grew in the grace of God, but also in favor with God and with man. I think there's a huge, huge lesson that we learn from Abraham in his coming up to his old age, that he was a man who maintained a good reputation. And what helped him maintain that good reputation among the people?
Following God.
Because of his faith in God. He kept trusting in God. People saw his character be true to God and true to moral good ways. And it's what carried him through in that life. And he was able to be satisfied at the end of it. Think about if you were going to do anything to make sure that when you come to the end of life, you can look back on it and go, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with the life, not just in the past, but I'm satisfied with life now, even with the aches and pains and with all that kind of stuff, and whatever comes along with old age. I'm satisfied with life. What makes us satisfied with life?
We
Our-
did everything we're supposed to do in our life.
Our connection to the life giver, right? And where we stand with him. And did Abraham have his failures along the way? Of course he did. But the thing that stands out about him is he continued to trust in God, right? All right. Anything else from his old age that stands out to you?
We're on borrowed time.
Living on borrowed time.
That's what everybody said.
He wasn't stingy with all of his stuff. He knew, I'm leaving this stuff behind. I'm gonna leave it to those who I value, those who are my children, and it's gonna benefit them, as opposed to, oh, my family, I can't stand them. Let's give this. No one gets this money. No one gets this stuff.
Can't
I'm gonna-
take it with you.
You can't take it with you. So he had a good view of his possessions in this life and giving them to benefit others too.
Is
Okay.
it better to get rid of all your stuff before you die?
Hmm.
Or wait till you die and let them take what they
Give it away and let them, manage you with it. Right? How about that?
Spend it all, they won't have anything to play.
Yeah, there you go. She's just tuned you out, man. Chris is just tuned you out. Number 7 here. Read Hebrews 11. What did Abraham have in common with the other great men and women described in this passage? And how did it make a difference in the way they lived? So what do you have in common with other people mentioned in Hebrews 11?
Like all of them, because they acted on their belief.
Okay. So that's the repeating statement about each of those people is their faith in God, right? And earlier on in the text, like faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Think about how there was so much that Abraham was about that he could not see, that he wasn't able to see that far into the future. He wasn't able to know. I mean, sort of like even as he's traveling, where do you want me to go, God? And what God tell him? To the place that I tell you. That way. That away. You're right. Turn here. I'll let you know when we get there. I mean, that's really kind of it. And think about how it was with Noah and Noah's faith as well. How was Abraham and Noah, how's their situation similar with regard to faith?
Nobody's ever seen the rain.
Yeah.
It's going on. It's gonna rain. It's gonna rain. I better build it.
They acted-
Yeah. Had never seen rain. God says, not only am I going to make it rain, but I'm going to flood the earth. Well, what's going to happen now? And then I'm going to have to build what now? A what? We're building a boat, a big boat.
What are those?
Yeah, what's that? I mean, surely they did some fishing somehow, some way, didn't they? I mean, but still, you're going to have me build what? That's going to house how many whats? But what was that going to be like? Just build it, and you'll be finding out soon enough. And when the rains come, right? And then how long are we going to be on this thing, God? He didn't tell him how long. It was wait and see. Isn't that interesting? God doesn't tell them when the end is going to be, but he just says, wait, basically, just do it and just trust me. You know, so cue in Bill Cosby's routine on Noah, you know. Booba, booba, booba. Bing, Noah, you know. It's the Lord. How long can you tread water? You want me to do what? But he's obedient to the Lord because he believes in the Lord. And Abraham's the same way. He's obedient to the Lord because he believes in the Lord. What else from Hebrews 11 that you learn about Abraham that either that he has in common with other men and women, or how it made a difference with how he lived compared to if he didn't have those qualities, if he didn't have that faith? What did it say about in Hebrews 11 about how he approached God's test of him with regard to Isaac? The Hebrew writer gives us some interesting little insight on that. I think it's verse 17 of Hebrews 11. What did he say Abraham was thinking as he's going to do this deed of killing the son, his only son, whom God has said this is the promise child, and all the promise is going to come through. So if he's dead, how's that promise going to come about, Mark?
No, you figured God could raise him from the dead.
Had he ever seen or heard about a resurrection before? Jesus hadn't even come on the scene yet. Resurrections weren't happening yet. But what made him think in those terms? Which is, I love that the Hebrew writer gives us this insight into what Abraham's thinking, because it's not just, you want me to do what? But instead he leans into it, and
He had to believe that God's promise would be kept. So how's God gonna do this? Must be this way.
yeah, he concludes the impossible, right? Well, surely God will raise him from the dead. That's the only way I see out of this. And but he comes to that conclusion because he believes something so fundamental about God. He's so bought in on something about God, that God is what? faithful to his promise.
Yeah.
Imagine daily life being so bought in that God is faithful. What does that life look like? Looks like Abraham's life. That God is faithful, so that even if I don't know, even if I can't see this far past my nose into the future as to what God's going to do, and it seems like, so think about his scenario. The whole Isaac having to die and be the sacrifice. Does that sound very inviting? Sounds like a pretty bad day, wouldn't you say? But instead of that just wrecking his world that day, he leans into it with trust in God, because I know that God is faithful. He will not make this to be something against what he's been promising. That much I know. So God is going to make a way out of whatever seems so hard and so challenging, so difficult, and such a mess right now. So that's so huge. And I think that made all the difference in how he lived. Because what's the opposite of that? Like, if that's how he did go because of faith in God, what does the opposite of that look like? If chapter 22 is written in terms of, and he doesn't listen to God, and he doesn't take Isaac to the mountain, he doesn't go to sacrifice, he says no way to God, what does his life look like at that point?
It's probably not written about.
Yeah, maybe he's
Right, yeah.
or do we not have things written about people who disobey God?
We do, yeah.
Absolutely. How about Jonah?
Usually.
I'm going to run as far away from God as I can, or as far away from Nineveh as I can, so that maybe God will pick somebody else because I'm too far away. Maybe God would have him still, God would still work it out that he cycles back, even if he's going to disobey God. So, but life that's not lived by faith in God, that takes its own route instead of God's route. How does that feel? It's a mess for people, right? It starts, maybe it works okay because, whew, all right, well, I didn't do this thing that was so hard that God wanted me to do, and that just seemed like that was really going to be a mess for my life. But it wasn't a mess for his life, and actually it was very much a blessing and a very character building thing. But the other way around starts to step away in an opposite direction from God, right? Okay. All right, we need to stop there. Anything else before we close that you got from Hebrews 11? Okay, we'll pick up with question 8 next week. Nope, 2 weeks. We have singing next week. 2 weeks. We'll finish out the lesson next time and get into the life of Isaac, not just Isaac, but Isaac and Rebecca. And we'll look at how they fare in their walk with God as we begin that study. All right. Any announcements that need to be made? I'll go. Got something from Ivy this morning. She put out a message, and it was a little bit lengthy because she hasn't messaged in quite a while. So she says it's been about 6 weeks since she's actually been able to send a message to all of us. She's been in the hospital. She finally released. They also sent a picture. She's in a wheelchair being wheeled out of the hospital, and Warren is wheeling her out. He has one hand on, and the other one's like in a cast in a sling, as he's trying to wheel her out. And God bless those two and their faith in him. But she did go on to talk about it, and she said, she goes, I hit for my life, I hit a time low while I was in the hospital. She said, I was afraid while I was in the hospital. And she goes, doesn't make any sense because I was in a hospital. Why should I be afraid? But I was afraid. And I hit an all-time low. So I know she dealt with some really low point, emotionally, there as well. But she just continued to praise God. And she said, there was a brother or a friend, somebody who had told her and said, you might feel like you're at rock bottom, but you know what that rock is that's at the bottom? That's God. And
Oh, that's sweet.
you're on, he's got you. And he's got you in the palm of his hand. That's what the rock is at the bottom. So and she noted that and was like, that really helped me so much. She did say that there, from some of the testing, the doctor strongly believes she does not have cancer. There's a little bit more testing to do, but she said, please pray that that's the case, but they feel pretty confident that's not. So that's good. On another note, she has a mass growing near her heart. And so that's another issue that they're having to take a look at and see what's going on. Some testing to do there. So we're going to see a cardiologist and go from there. So please pray for her with regard to that. There's just so much been going on for those guys. And Warren's been having some better outcome with his hand, no more infection in his hand, and so of course continuing with the painful cleanings and everything, but yeah. But they just said thank you so much to everybody, and praising God for just all the support they've had from all the brethren, all the prayers. So talked briefly with Brett today. He says, give everybody our love. So Brett and Christy send their love, and they're doing well. I don't know. Did you know they're doing well? They're doing well. Yeah. And then no breakfast tomorrow because we already had our leadership one like 2 weeks ago. So next week will be the men's breakfast at the last Thursday of the month.
They're traveling.
Robin and Cheryl traveling, leaving tomorrow, gone for
2 weeks.
2 weeks ish, 2.5. Taking Cassidy's belongings to her and getting to visit family in the process. So good deal. Safe travels to you guys. Anything else? Oh, Hannah's going back on Saturday, back to Florida. Horrible, despicable Florida. As well for him. All right. If there's nothing else, then let's close with a prayer. And Bobby, would you close us in that, please?
Holy God, our Father in heaven, Lord, we come to you in prayer, asking that you be with us, guide us in all things we do. But especially, we ask that you be with Ivy and Warren as they're healing up, getting their life back together, being able to do things. We just pray that you'll be with them and comfort them. We're also thankful, Father, for this opportunity that we can come together here and open up your word and study from it. Realize some of the things that went on back in the times. That sometimes it's the way we live here too. We pray for all those that are sick and afflicted. Pray that you'll be with them and comfort them. Especially pray that you'll be with Pat. Comfort her in this time that she was going through. Be with us now as we separate, go to our individual homes. Let us return at the next appointed hour if it be thy will. All this we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. I did fail to mention Ed and Kelly, I believe, I don't know if they've left yet, but they're trying to get on the road to go and be in Texas with Kelly's dad, who's not doing well. So just keep them in your prayers. I know that's got to be hitting pretty hard for them and everything. And it's just tough for Kelly to also do the traveling with her anxiety and stuff that she's dealing with. So So just keep them in your prayers. All right. Thanks.